It was raining, as it always seemed in Whitechapel, London, a thin gray drizzle that stuck to your skin and made even the air feel hungry. Mam and I hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. Her cough had returned, wet and painful, deep in her chest. She wouldn't leave the bed. I wrapped her in our last woolen shawl and lit a candle, though we couldn't afford it. I sat beside her all night, listening to the wheeze of her lungs and the rats scratching in the walls. My hands trembled as I reached for hers, her skin cold and clammy. The shadows on the walls felt alive, twitching with every cough she gave. "Don't do nothin' foolish, Meggie," she whispered, her hand finding mine in the dark. Her fingers were like twigs, brittle and shaking. "We'll get through, we always do." But we wouldn't, and I knew it. The truth sat heavy in my chest, pressing against my ribs like something caged and wild. By morning, I was in the alley behind the baker's shop, heart hammering, fingers numb with cold. My empty stomach clenched so tight it felt like it might eat itself. The smell of warm bread drifted out into the drizzle. Thick, rich, and cruel. I told myself I'd ask. I told myself I'd beg. But my mouth was too dry, and my pride too loud. When I stepped through the back door and saw the rows of loaves, so neat, golden, and steaming, something inside me cracked. My hands twitched at my sides. I reached out, every nerve on fire, and snatched one. Stuffed it under my shawl. My chest heaved. Then I turned for the door and walked straight into the baker. "You little thief," he roared, seizing me by the wrist. His grip was iron, my wrist burned. I dropped the loaf. "It's for me, ma'am. She's sick." "We've not eaten in days," I stammered, voice cracking. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away. "Save your lies for the magistrate." They dragged me, kicking and screaming, to the constable's post like I was a wild dog. My feet scraped along the cobbles, my fingernails clawing at the air. I will never forget Mam's face when she finally found me. Pale, ashen. Her eyes were wide and glassy. She tried to speak, but the words got caught in her cough. She reached through the bars with shaking hands, her breath shallow and wheezy. Something small, wrapped in cloth, pressed into mine. "For when you're lonely," she whispered. I quickly hid it beneath my thin dress, my heart thudding like a drum. They yanked her away before we had a chance to touch. "You've said your goodbyes. Be off with you now, ye old hag. You should have taught your daughter better than stealing." The constable's loud voice boomed. "No!" I screamed, my throat tore with it. "Ma'am, please, ma'am!" The last thing I saw of my ma'am was her being shoved roughly through the door, her shawl slipping from her shoulders. Weeping, I turned my back. Pulling the parcel from under my bodice, I carefully unwrapped it with shaking fingers. Tears streamed down my face. It was my book, a tattered volume filled with pressed herbs and scribbled notes, the one I'd treasured since Uncle Will's time. I clutched it to my chest, my knuckles white, and hid it under my shift before they noticed. The trial was swift and cold. The courtroom smelled of mildew and damp coats. No one cared why I stole, only that I did. The baker called me a menace. The constable said I'd been seen before, though I hadn't. The judge barely looked at me, eyes half-lidded with boredom. 7 years transportation, he said, like he was ordering supper. Just like that, my life was gone. They gave me 1 hour to say goodbye. I never got it. Henry Wellesley was the ship's name that would carry me away, bound for Sydney, Australia. We were all female convicts. They herded us aboard like cattle at dawn, shackled and silent. A motley bunch of women and children, the youngest a babe in arms, the oldest gray-haired and bent. A few children clung to their mothers, wide-eyed and thin. The stench of salt, urine, and sickness hit me like a wall. My stomach turned. The hold was dark and cramped. The bunks were stacked 3 high and built into the walls. The straw mattresses were crawling with lice. My skin crawled. I scratched without realizing, heart hammering. We were each given a blanket, a wooden bowl, and a tin cup. That was it. I found a corner and curled into it, knees to my chest. My breaths came shallow. I couldn't speak. Couldn't cry anymore. My body shivered from the cold. That's when she found me. "You planning to rot in that corner, girl?" I looked up. A tall, broad-shouldered woman with graying hair and sharp eyes was peering down at me. "Or are you waiting for someone to carry you off to heaven?" "Leave me alone," I mumbled, hugging my arms tighter. "Suit yourself, but I'll tell you this, girls who hide get eaten." She walked off, but she came back later with half a biscuit. "Here, chew slowly." "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Because it's the last decent thing you'll taste till we land. Name's June." "Meg," I told her, and just Meg. She smiled, not kindly but not unkindly either. "Well, just Meg, you stick close to me, keep your head down, do what you're told, and never go to the stores alone." I didn't understand what she meant, not yet. The days blurred into each other, endless, damp, stinking days. The air below deck was thick with sweat and filth. My hair stuck to my neck. Rats scurried over our feet at night. The food was sour, but the water was worse. Women coughed, vomited, argued, and wept. If the weather held up, we were allowed on deck once a day. That was the only time I saw the sky. Some of the crew were kind, most were not. One morning, an older man asked for help moving supplies. I was eager to do something, feel the sun again, and maybe earn a scrap of food. My palms were slick with sweat as I followed the sailor to the store, just below deck, near the galley. It was a trap. He cornered me against the barrels, his breath thick with rum and rot. I froze. My limbs locked up and my breath was shallow. I fought, clawed, and begged. He was too strong. Afterwards, I lay on the floor for what felt like hours. I couldn't move. My legs trembled. My hands curled into fists. My mouth was dry as a bone. I couldn't breathe. My ribs ached. I told no one. But June saw. "You went alone," she said that night. I nodded, eyes swollen shut from crying. She didn't ask for details. She just held me, her rough hand stroking my hair like Ma'am used to. Her touch made the lump in my throat crack wide open. "You're not the first," she whispered, "and you won't be the last. But you'll make it, because you have to." The sea gave us no mercy either. We hit a real storm a few weeks in, the kind we all pray to avoid. It hit on a Thursday. Bad luck for sailors, they say. Thunder cracked like musket fire. The ship bucked and groaned. Rain poured in through every crack. We were thrown from our bunks like dolls. "Grab the beam," June shouted. I did, arms straining, the beam slick with rain and sweat. My teeth rattled. Waves roared around us like they wanted to drag us under. Salt stung my eyes. A girl named Liza, with small, bright eyes, was crushed beneath a barrel. Another woman vanished when a hatch tore open. The next day, they threw the dead prisoners over the side. No prayers. Just a splash that ended their existence. The crew fared slightly better. Stitched up in a canvas and dropped into the ocean, the captain said a quick prayer. We saw the worst of men on that ship. The captain was cruel. He had a whip for every mood. Once, he had a woman flogged for mouthing off. Her back was a map of blood for days. June stepped between them once when the captain raised his hand at a girl. "She's just a child," she said, voice low. He hit her too, but only once. I think he saw something in her eyes that made him stop. Weeks passed. My belly began to churn in the mornings. I thought it was the food, the ship. June knew better. "How long since your last bleeding?" I stared at her, my ears rang, my hands began to tremble. "No," I whispered, "it can't be, it can't." My knees buckled. I sat hard on the bunk, clutching my stomach. She sat beside me, silent. "It wasn't my fault," I said. "It wasn't. I didn't ask for—" "I know, love, I know." It was late afternoon when we finally saw land. Someone shouted, and women scrambled up to the deck, clinging to the railing like it might vanish. There, rising in the distance, golden and unfamiliar, was the coast of New South Wales, Australia. I stood beside June, heart pounding, belly twisting. I could smell the trees in the wind, hear birds. The air was warm and sharp. My fingers gripped the rail until my knuckles turned white. I should have felt something. I didn't. "What now?" I whispered. June didn't answer. Her eyes were on the horizon. and mine were on the child I now knew was growing inside me. I was 15, alone, shamed, scarred, and I had no idea what waited for me on that shore. But this story, my story, doesn't end here. This was only the beginning. Thank you for listening to Meg's story, the first steps of a long and heartbreaking journey. Life on the convict ship was cruel, but what awaits her in Australia's strange new land will test her even more. If you want to hear what happens next, how she survives, who she becomes, and what her future is, follow Timeless Tales by Anna. I'll be sharing Chapter 2, Land of No Mercy, very soon. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.